I'm searching, hoping to create a somewhat comprehensive way of strengthening shoulders, rehab, prehab kind of activities. So some of the things that you can use would be like a band like this. If you don't have a band like this, that's fine. You can use light hand weights. I emphasize light hand weights. If you don't have light hand weights, you can use soup cans or bean cans, something like that, something that's going to be even on both sides, but not too heavy. And then you also can benefit from having a wall or a door. So for some of these things. All right, so we're going to start first. What we're going to do is address neck and shoulder, because if you're having neck pinch nerve kind of stuff like that, or if you're having shoulder issues, these two really kind of work together. So if you're having one, it might be emanating from the other, or vice versa. So it's great to be able to work both at the same time. All right, so we're going to start first just by bringing the arms by the sides, and you're going to be pointing your fingertips actively towards the floor. Then I'd like you to just gently lift your shoulders upward. That's a gentle movement, but then you're going to slowly but very actively press the shoulders down. So the movement from the side is lifting gently with your head facing forward, and then a very active pressing of the shoulders down. So you want to feel like somebody's pulling your fingertips to the floor. And then again, lifting and lowering. And you can do that periodically throughout the day to help loosen. So keep in mind that it's not a rounding movement. Now, rounding movement isn't necessarily a bad thing, but when we're trying to address shoulder and neck, then just straight up and straight down is better. So say, for example, you could do that anywhere between 3 and 10 times just to begin your warm up. Then we actively have those fingertips still pressing towards the floor. Palms are facing forward, what we call anatomical position. And we're going to try and position the neck so that it's directly over the rest of the spine. We're going to turn the chin to the right side, and we hold and breathe. Then we slowly turn the chin to the left side and hold and breathe. So this movement is done not so much as you come back into the center, not so much to loosen anything up, but more to get a sense of, is one side tighter from the other side. Then from here, keeping your head in the center, we're going to lean the right ear towards the right shoulder. Now, what we're trying to avoid here is lifting the right shoulder towards the ear. We're also trying to avoid rotating the chin. So again, you want to start from the face is facing directly forward. Using a mirror can be very helpful, and just letting the right ear tilt towards the right shoulder. Now, if you notice, I'm not tilting that far. I can go a little further, but it's not super important. What we're trying to do here is create some space in the cervical spine by leaning from one side to the other side. This you can hold for a bit. And we come back into the center. And again, if you need to recalibrate that centered space, lean your left ear towards the left side and hold and breathe. So while you're doing that, you still want to be actively pressing the fingertips towards the floor. And then again, when you come back into the center, you may evaluate from one side to the other if it felt more intense from one side to the other. Good. Now, here comes a very important one. Again, keeping the cervical spine right on top of the rest of your spine. You're going to take 2 fingers and push the back of your head back. So notice I'm not pushing my chin down. Instead, I'm just pushing the back of my head back, and I'm going to go as far as I can go. You may want to start by modulating that a little bit less. So you may want to go just a little bit back and then hold for 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Then release that. Now, I used this hand. If you notice when you're doing that bothers you, for example, like maybe you have a shoulder injury in that hand, in that side, then use the other hand. It doesn't matter which fingers you use. And then you might do that again. So pushing back and hold for 10, 9, 8, maybe this time you can go a little further back, 3, 2, and 1, and then release and maybe lift and lower, recalibrate, kind of take a second, and then you'll do that one more time, and that's pushing the back of the head, back of the neck, back. Keep sure that you're not lifting your head as you do that. You're not dropping the chin, you're just going straight back. We'll have an opportunity to lift the chin in a moment. So holding for another 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now bring your hand down, but keep the back of your head, back of your neck reaching back. And here we're going to slowly lift the chin up. And as you slowly lift the chin up, it should feel like you don't have that much range of motion. And that's okay. Because if we're doing it correctly, we'll feel sensation going down the back of the neck and into the shoulders. Good. And then release. So all of these things you can repeat a couple of times if you want to, or periodically throughout the day. All right, so then we're going to bring fingertips to the temples. And as you bring your fingertips to your temples, the idea here is not to be pressing your head forward or anything. That's why we bring it to the side of the head. And then we open the elbows as wide as possible, which may feel a little strained right there. We're going to draw the elbows in and open wide, draw the elbows in, open wide, and one more time, draw the elbows in and open wide. Good. Then you can also add some movement in the rest of the spine if that feels like where you want to go, right? This isn't specifically for the neck, it's more just like if your back starts to need a little attention. All right, then my favorite is what we call in yoga cactus arms. And we're going to draw the elbows together, much like we did in the previous activity, and open up. And then squeeze in and open. And then this time we'll squeeze in and hold. So as we squeeze in and hold, we can interlace the fingers here. We're going to do a little movement. So what I want you to do is pretend that you have fingers on your chin and push the back of your head, neck, away from you again. As you do that, I want you to reach your forearms and elbows forward. So notice that my elbows are pretty much on the same plane as my shoulders. I'm going to lift, and then I'm going to lower. So this movement is very small, not lifting very high, up and down movement, and you may even start to feel your arms shake a little bit. Good. And then you can release. We'll come back to that one in a moment. All right, so if you do have a band, then use your band. We'll start with assuming that you have a band. And we're going to take the hands to hold the band here. Notice that my forearms are parallel to the floor and ceiling, and my wrists are in neutral. So if your wrists are hanging like that, curl your fingertips in towards your wrist. There's some slack in the middle of my band. And I'm going to keep my elbows away from the sides of my body. So we don't want to squeeze the elbows in. In fact, if you have 2 hand towels or 2 thin pillows, you could place them on either side so that you're not likely to squeeze in. We're going to pull both hands away from the center as evenly as possible and bring that back in. So we open out and bring it back in. Now we're not really trying to do something, it's not exactly like an exercise, it's more of, again, sort of a diagnostic tool, but it's also to gently strengthen your rotator cuff. So the next couple of movements are specifically for the rotator cuff. If you experience significant sharp pain as you're doing this, then don't do it. That would be an indication that one part of your rotator cuff is probably in distress. That could be a frozen shoulder, it could be an impingement, and it could be a tear. Tear, you'd probably know if you were in constant discomfort. It wouldn't be like sharp pain all the time, but just like a constant unpleasant feeling in your shoulder. Okay, so then we do the same thing. So I would do like 10 to 12 of those. We do the same thing now, except that the hands are going to be in what I call steering wheel hands. It's just that instead of 10 and 2, they're at 9 and 3. All right, again, you see that there is some slack, and I have my thumbs facing up. Now I have my thumbs facing up for a reason. Again, some space between the elbows and the side of your body, but I pull away and I keep my thumbs pointing up to the ceiling. That way I know that I'm keeping my wrists in a neutral position. So if you start to see that your thumbs are pointing out to the side, that's a different activity, and you're going to feel it more in your deltoids rather than feeling it in your rotator cuff. Rotator cuff has 4 small muscles, and this is a little bit different. This one is going to be towards the supraspinatus, which is probably the more common place for injury when it comes to rotator cuff stuff. Again, these activities are both rehab and prehab. So if you are someone who swims a lot, or just have a tendency to use a repetitive movement in your shoulder, these kinds of things will help to prevent an injury. Good. Okay, then we have the next one, which if you're using, let me just demonstrate quickly, those 2 activities can be done with light hand weights. So if you're doing them with light hand weights, you still see how I still have space between my elbows and the side of my body. I'm going to open up and draw back in. Okay, so it's literally right in front of my navel, just above my navel, and I'm opening out and bringing it in. The other activity, so this is like the steering wheel grip one, and this is like the first one that I did with the band, in and out, right? You want, again, to watch that the wrist is not hanging, because that's going to put strain on your wrist. Instead, you want to curl the fingertips in towards your wrist. You can use cans, you could use 2 bottles of water, you can use these weights. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is called scaption. Sounds a little bit like something we read at the bottom of the TV screen. Scaption. You can do this with the weights. I'm going to demonstrate first with the weights, but if you have a band, it's actually better with the band. So weights or cans or bottles of water, we're just going to lift a little bit out to the side and then bring the arms back close to the side of the body. So we lift a little bit. This, please note, this is not an exercise. This is a warm-up. And where I'm hoping that one would feel this is right in the center of the shoulder joint. So if you're feeling it in the deltoids, you're going too far, right? This is not an activity for the deltoids. This is an activity to warm up the shoulder. And again, you can do about 10, 12. You might do this until you feel like some fatigue in the shoulder. If you have a band, however, I would suggest doing it with a band. You may want to use your handles on the band, or you can just use the very ends of the band. We're going to bring the hands still to face forward and place one foot in the center of the band. If your band is super long, you can bring both feet into the band. Okay, and then again, we're just going to lift a little bit up until we feel resistance, and then we bring it back down. So again, depending on the length of your band and whether you're using handles or not, you're going to lift out to the side until you feel resistance from the band, and then you bring it back down. So from side, just a little bit out to the side. So this does look like an exercise, but again, we're not lifting very high out to the side. So if any of these particular activities give you sharp pain, you should definitely speak to your doctor and say which one, because that will help them to understand what part of your rotator cuff is bothering you. Okay, so we'll move away from that. And we're going to come to a couple of things that you can do either with a wall or with a door. So we're going to start first with what I call a forearm plank against the wall. So you're going to come right up against the wall, close to the wall, so that your elbows are right in front of your shoulders. Now, keep in mind that you want to bring your elbows shoulder distance apart. So if your elbows are wide or your elbows are too close, is not correct. So create one straight line from your shoulder to your elbow, okay? And then from there, you want to open your fingers up comfortably wide, okay? And you want to press into all of those fingers. Your whole forearm is against the wall. And then you're going to just slightly squeeze your elbows towards each other without really moving them. And then you're going to push the wall away. So here, if you recall from the very beginning, reaching the back of your head, back of your neck away, then I want you to use that. Otherwise, you're in a plank position. One straight line from the top of your head to your heels. If you are doing this correctly, your arms may start to shake a little bit. You may start to feel some fatigue in the back of your shoulder blades and even your arms. So if those things are happening, then you know you're doing it right. The idea here is to stabilize the shoulder, okay? Make sure that you don't start like getting all droopy or anything here, all right? So that's one option. Then you can take a second to release. One of the cues here is you want to think about somebody placing their fingertip in between your shoulder blades, and you're pushing your shoulder blades into the finger. So don't let the shoulder blades sink forward. Instead, you're pushing them away. Okay, good. So then you can hold this. This is a great activity, just to simple activity that you can hold for about 10 to 15 seconds. Now you're going to have one arm that is the affected arm. Let's say it's your right shoulder. So I'm going to, in the way I'm going to work my right shoulder is holding all of this just as it is. I'm going to slide the left arm a little tiny bit out to the side and slide it back in. So it's a slide out, slide in. I'm barely lifting off the wall. But as I'm doing that, I'm working very hard on stabilizing through the other arm that's by the wall. Okay, you may need to take a little stretch here right now. So you can bring your fingertips to the wall and bring your ears alongside your upper arms and push the seat back. You can do this against the back of a chair as well, and you can modulate. So if it's a little too much in the shoulders, you can come closer to the wall. Another thing that you could do is some standing cow and cat from the wall, which may feel really nice to do as well. All right, we move on to forearm against the wall. Now, a couple of activities here, these are isometric activities. So as you're doing these, the muscles are not getting longer or shorter, but they are working. So in this case, I'm using my right hand. It looks to you like it's my left hand. It doesn't matter. I'm going to bring my forearm so that it's parallel to the floor. And I'm going to come to stand right up against the wall and push my forearm into the wall. So again, I'm not moving muscle, but I am activating muscle. If you feel pain anywhere, sharp pain as you're doing that, that's something important to know and good to express to a medical professional. Now, in order to do the opposite of this, it's a little hard because I can't do it from here, right? I can't do it from here. So what I'm going to do, and please pardon the hallway here, but I'm going to bring, it looks like a coal mine. I'm going to bring my forearm now on the door, and I'm going to press my body into the door so the door doesn't move, but I'm going to be doing exactly the same thing I just did here, only now I'm pressing in instead of pushing out. So again, if you're feeling any distress in that shoulder as you're pushing in, that's a good thing to let a medical professional know. Obviously, they would do a full battery of tests, but just some things to know. Couple of other things that you can do. You can do an isometric hold, pushing into the wall here. So your elbows are directly underneath your shoulders. You're in a plank position and you're pushing into the wall. You may feel that in the front of the shoulder. Conversely, you can do the opposite, which is stand up against the wall and push your elbows into the wall. As you do that, you want to try and really press your body as much in. You may have to bring your feet a little further away and then press your elbows into the wall. So all of these are isometric activities designed to strengthen the rotator cuff. Okay, so to take the band again, we can do some stretches here. So you can use a band. You can even use a broomstick if you have a broomstick. The broomstick is going to be a little harder because it's not movable, right? The other thing that you could use is a belt, right? So more movable, less movable. I'll show both. We're going to start first just by taking the band in the hands almost all the way to the end and simply lift overhead. Okay, so if you find that going all the way up overhead is causing discomfort, then go as far up as you can until you feel discomfort, right? So just getting to that edge without going over the edge, right? Then you can maybe, if it works for you, take the band a little bit behind the head, right? And then maybe then let's do the side one. So we're going to bring it by the side, take it behind, and then to the other side. So if I were demonstrating with the broomstick, which I happen to have, it's the same thing, sort of up, down, up, down. If you can get overhead, up. You want to hold on to that broomstick with the whole fist, right? Good. And then this becomes harder using the whole broomstick with your hand, because as you come to the side, your hands likely are going to want to release a little bit, but you're going to try and keep that from releasing. Come behind, see how my arms want to bend. I'm going to try and straighten them and bring it to the other side. So here, this is what I would call a little bit more advanced and requires a little bit more mobility. So if you have a current shoulder injury, probably want to stay with the band, okay? Because that has some give. So as you move from one side to the other side, you can keep the arm straighter because the band gives you some space. And of course, you want to go to the other side, behind, front, side, behind, and front. Good. All right. So then we have going all the way behind the head. So if it works for you, you can get all the way back. If that doesn't work, if there's sharp pain, don't do it. That one is really not. Those are like when you know that your mobility is improved. Okay, so we finish up with a couple of big stretches. First, we come back to those fingertips actively pressing down to the floor. We turn the chin to the right and we drop the chin down. Then we're going to take the left hand to the right side of the head and begin to pull the left ear towards the left shoulder. Watch that the left shoulder doesn't creep up towards the ear. With your right arm, you're going to spiral your right arm from the shoulder joint and turn that palm to face away from you. And then begin to explore where the greatest part of the stretch comes for you. So you may want to tilt your head more forward. You may want to tilt your head more to the side. You may even want to tilt your head back. And you don't want to pull so hard that you're feeling like there's any distress or anything, but this should feel like a really good and deep, intense stretch. Maybe not so much when you are doing it, but when we release and you come back into the center, you need a moment to kind of let it settle in. You may need to move the shoulders around a little bit, wiggle fingers, open the mouth. So tightness in the shoulders, hips, jaw, they are all related. Let's bring those hands again to face forward, actively pressing fingertips to the floor. We turn the chin now to the left and we'll begin to tilt the head forward. We'll bring the right arm across and gently press that right ear towards that right shoulder. We begin to spiral the left arm, the whole arm. So it happens in the shoulder joint as the palm faces away, and then begin to explore where it is that this stretch is where you need. All right. And then you'll hold, and you can hold, count of 10 or hold until you feel like the intensity has subsided. I wouldn't hold any longer really than 30 seconds. And then again, we come back, and that you may even feel going down all the fingertips. So you may want to move the fingers around a little bit. You can gently shrug shoulders around. Here's where you may want to move them around. Again, maybe opening the mouth and moving the jaw around. And then finally, we're going to do the cactus arms again. So we bring the elbows together and open. Bring the elbows together and open. And then one more time, we're going to bring the elbows together and we're going to hold them together. So again, you see that my forearms are parallel to the floor and ceiling. And I'm going to reach the back of my head, back of my neck, away from my forearms. And I'm going to reach my elbows and forearms as far forward as I can. Kind of zip up from the midline. Big stretch going down the sides of the neck, into the shoulders and wrapping around in the shoulder blades. Good. And hold and breathe. And again, you can hold that. I wouldn't hold it any longer than 30 seconds. Release it. And then you may want to do a little more of the up and down movement. Just up and down. You may want to move the fingers around. You may want to do a little circular movement here. You may want to lift the arms out and up. And that should be it. All right. So if you can do some or all of these at least once a day, that probably would be helpful. And please let me know if you have any questions. All right.